Welcome to Eternal Manna, the daily broadcast of Grace Gospel Church. We are looking at Psalm 10, and today we come to the last three verses, verses 16 to 18, and I'm reading it from the Living Bible. The Lord is King forever and ever. Now, that is very striking because in the days of the psalmist, there was a monarchy. The nations were ruled by kings. And of course, most of the times these kings acted as dictators and they were not benevolent. They were harsh on the people. But in striking contrast, we have our God who is being described as the king. And this king will be king forever and ever. He will not be succeeded by anyone. He is permanent, he is eternal, and he is the king universal. Those who follow other gods shall be swept from his land. We are called to worship the one and the true living God. And it's always a temptation to go after false gods. Elsewhere in the Bible, they are called foreign gods. And even in our day, there are these false gods, these foreign gods of materialism, popularity, education, and the list goes on. And these false gods are going to fail us ultimately. They disappoint. They cannot keep their promises. And constantly we need to check our own personal lives to see whether some false god has crept in and is taking our attention and our affection away from the true and the living God. Lord, you know the hopes of humble people. Who are the humble people? The humble people are the God dependent people. They are not self dependent, they are God dependent. And God knows the hopes, the fears, the dreams of the humble. Surely you will hear their cries. And so the humble cries to the Lord. The humble prays to God. The humble are seeking God's help and God's favor. And God hears those cries. And what does God do? He comforts their hearts by helping them. God comforts the hearts of the humble, and God helps them in very wonderful, unique ways. So today, the condition that we have to display in our life, the disposition of a humble heart, a heart that is poor in spirit and recognizing the greatness of God and dependent upon Him and Him alone. And when we call upon this God, our God is going to hear us and He is going to fulfill the desires of our heart, and He is going to fulfill the dreams, the aspirations of our heart in accordance with His will. And He is going to help us. That's guaranteed. And then in verse 18, the psalmist says, you will be with the orphans and all who are oppressed. I notice in this psalm, there are four categories of people that the psalmist talks about. In verse 12, he talked about the poor and the needy. In verse 14, he talked about the helpless. And now in verse 18, he talks about the orphans and the oppressed. Now, these categories are what we would today call the vulnerable. These are the vulnerable people in society. The poor, the helpless, the orphans, and the oppressed. And the psalmist says, God is with these vulnerable people. And God is going to defend them. And God is going to fight for them. And they are not going to be terrified by these powerful earthly people who manipulate and who intimidate and who harass and oppress these vulnerable people. And today, to a large extent, you and I could say that we fall into this category, isn't it? We are not the high and the mighty. We are low. We are down and out. And God hears us, and God is going to come through for us. God will defend us. God will resource us. And we don't have to fear the face of any man. We don't have to fear the face of man, however mighty they may appear to be, and however intimidating they may look, and all their taunts. We don't have to fear, because our God, our King, is there to defend us, and He will come through for us. So, no matter what you are facing today, remember that our God is the God of the orphans, the oppressed, the poor and the needy, and the helpless, and He will be always there for us. May God bless you and give you a wonderful day today. Amen.
For more videos like this, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, Grace Gospel English Church Toronto. Thank you.